Well, I think the Tory party has to settle down and get on with delivering its mandate that it was elected on in 2019 with a massive majority, which is to govern on behalf of the citizens of this country. And I think that means tackling the economic challenges we face, tackling the threats globally that we face, and I make sure that's the real number one priority for us all.
Can you say whether you would be standing in this leadership race?
Look, last time I said I wouldn't stand, it was not something that I was prepared to do. I think you really have to want it as a Prime Minister to do that job. You have to really, really think it's the job for you. For me, I feel that I can add the best value in keeping people safe at Defence by being the Defence Secretary. It's the job that I have been doing, and it's the job I intend to stay doing. So I am not going to be standing for Prime Minister this time, and the same reasons really apply as last time.
Can you tell us who you would be putting your weight behind?
Well, I think it's really important to consider for me which candidate will recognise the very pressing security concerns that face this country at the time, that will take decisions to invest in defence and security. It's really important. Without national security, there is no economic security, and I think that is important that whoever are the candidates putting their names forward, they indicate that. But also at the same time, I have to recognise the issue of the mandate. This will be potentially our third Prime Minister since the general election of 2019. That means we have to think about that legitimacy question that the public will be asking themselves, and also about who could win the next election. That's obviously important for any political party at the time. So, at the moment, I would lean towards Boris Johnson. I think he will still have some questions to answer around, obviously, that investigation. But I know when I was Secretary of State for Defence, he invested in defence, he supported me, he supported the actions this country has taken to keep us safe. So that's at the moment, I'm leaning towards that. But I think, there are a few days to go, and we'll see what's happened. There's some other candidates who are just as excellent putting their name in the ring, but I think fundamentally we have to answer those first 2 points I said earlier.
So you would not be supporting then the candidacy of Rishi Sunak?
Well, I think what I've said is at the moment I'm leaning towards Boris Johnson. I'll be keen to see what Rishi Sunak also says on defence and security and investment. And I think it's just important to reiterate to your viewers, there can't be economic security without national security. And therefore, those candidates need to answer that question as much as what they're going to do in the here and now about the economy.
Do you know whether Mr Johnson would be in favour of keeping the commitment to keeping defence spending at 3% of GDP in the next decade?
Well, his track record is definitely of investing in defence. He gave me an extra £24 billion into defence when other departments weren't getting a multi-year settlement at the time, and I think that shows his actions were obviously his true colours on that. And I think we just have to continue looking at the impacts of the economic situation. But the direction of travel has to be an increased investment in defence, and certainly recognising that there are real threats to this country. And there's not a day that goes by without me working on that. And I am in a position where I see those threats. Often the public can't see them, I'm afraid, because of intelligence, but nonetheless they are real, and I'll look for a candidate and a leader that can do that. Boris Johnson has to date always had that track record, and that's why I'll be leaning towards him at the moment.
Do you not think that Mr Johnson, though, is tainted by previous scandals and that the electorate really wouldn't go for that?
Well, let's see. In 2019, he won a general election with a huge majority. He was legitimately sent into Parliament as the Prime Minister based on the vote of the whole electorate, not just on Tory members, not just on members of Parliament. That he got a mandate, and I think that's an important thing for all of us to bear in mind. We'll see what happens. Of course, unity is also important. I'll be looking for how the candidates are prepared to bring the party together, because without unity we can't govern either.
But some would say that Mr Johnson would be even more divisive, because it seems that a number of MPs have said that they will resign the whip if he becomes the candidate.
Look, we've seen, sadly, from the last leadership election, the party had lots of finalists. There wasn't a clear winner head and shoulders above the other. That, of course, is cause for concern. And here we are back again, I'm afraid. And last time they didn't choose, Rishi Sunak, they didn't choose others, they chose Liz Truss. I would have hoped that we'd all settled down, given people some space, delivered a new budget. That hasn't happened. So therefore we have to recognise we have to focus on unity. We have to focus on who's best placed to win the next election as well.
Do you think it's realistic for there to be a Halloween budget, given that the new leader will only be in place 2 days before this budget takes place?
Well, look, I think the timing of the budget is incredibly important when it comes to the advice you get from the Treasury. The Treasury has to make sure that it keeps confidence in the international markets, and if that deems a budget on the 31st October, then that is what potentially it has to happen. But I'll leave that decision to the Chancellor, who has the best interests of the economy at his heart.
Do you think any potential leader is going to have to really work hard with Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor? Is it really Jeremy Hunt who's still going to be in charge?
Well, I hope Jeremy stays as Chancellor. I had a meeting with him yesterday. Jeremy is, like me, a very experienced member of the government. He joined with me in 2005. He is calm, he is experienced, he's knowledgeable about all that needs to be done. And, I have a lot of faith in him being our Chancellor.
And how realistic is it, do you think, of any of these candidates to get 100 votes? How many candidates do you think will be able to achieve that?
Well, we've got over 350 MPs. I think that is possible. We've got between now and Monday, and I think we'll get on with it.